voters, tonight we discuss the need for reforms in our personal laws, for gender justice, for gender equality, for a basic right to a dignified life, for our fundamental right. The government has initiated the process to bring about a new law that will legislate instant triple talaq. This is after the top court 3 months ago struck it down as unconstitutional. Instant talaq is unconstitutional, said the Supreme Court. And already there are people who are opposing this government's move. They don't know what's on the anvil. They don't know what the government will come out with as a proposal, but they have decided that they must raise their voice against it. I wonder why. When a 24-year-old woman gets a WhatsApp message from her husband 10 days after she gets married, and the WhatsApp message says, talaq, 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 should that man not be sent to jail? Should he not face the consequences for it? When another woman is beaten up, tortured, harassed, and then abandoned, and that man walks away saying talaq, 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 should he not be punished for that? That's the basic question we are asking. What kind of a law are we still fighting against today? But before we get to the debate, here is a brief look as to what has really happened in the past 3 months.
On August 22nd, India's topmost court delivered a historic verdict, striking down instant triple talaq for being unconstitutional, paving the way for reforms via more legislation. Now, it appears the government has begun the work on a fresh legislation.
The intention of the government is very apparent. It does not want to drag its feet further to give effect to the Supreme Court judgment. As a matter of fact, we had the opportunity to have a brief conversation earlier with the former attorney Mukul Rohtagi.
Once the judgment says that triple talaq is forbidden, is unlawful, is illegal, and it has equated gender justice, it has brought up the lot of women of the minority community, given them dignity, given them their rights. So you give them a right, so you have to give them a remedy also.
But even before more details emerge and government presents a bill for discussion, many have begun to speak against it.
मुसलमानों की क्यों सरकार को इतनी फिक्र सता रही है? दरअसल वो मुसलमानों को लेकर के या मुस्लिम महिलाओं को लेकर के कोई फिक्रमंद नहीं है, बल्कि ये उनका एक सियासी गेम है.
और धार्मिक मामले में तमाम धर्म से जुड़ी जो संगठन होते हैं, जो धर्म से जुड़े धर्म गुरु होते हैं, उनके साथ भी उनको इस पर पूरी चर्चा करनी चाहिए.
It was inevitable because after all Supreme Court can only declare whether something is unconstitutional or constitutional. They can't make laws.
Instead of joining the fight for justice and equality of rights, many clerics and even netas are grabbing onto some misplaced sense of power. But will this new legislation set the winds of change for a larger reform? Let's debate.
So we have 3 questions tonight. As we discuss the way forward, what should this law, this legislation be about? How should the government go about its way? What are your views? Tweet, call, or use involve and tell us. Be a part of this interaction tonight. Question number 1. If the Supreme Court says that instant talaq is unconstitutional, why are people still opposing the government's move to bring in a law? Question number 2. Should somebody who's been found guilty of practicing instant talaq be imprisoned? Don't we need a tougher law to ensure that this doesn't happen? Because even after the Supreme Court verdict, there have been instances, many instances, where men have still chosen to pronounce talaq twice at one go and walk away. And question number 3, should the government go beyond instant talaq and look at a larger reform, codify the personal reforms? Many women, hundreds of them, have been demanding this for several years now. Is it time to move beyond the 1937 Shariat law? Let's say good evening to our guest, Zakia Soman, the founding member of the Bharatiya Muslim Mahila Andolan, is joining us this evening. I've also got Mahmood Paracha, he's an advocate and also member of the All India Muslim Personal Law Board. Let me come to you, Mr. Paracha, because we just played out a few voices. Through the day, we've heard many more. Why are some of the Muslim Personal Law Board members and other clerics and even some politicians already opposing something which we don't even know what shape it is going to take?
Tanvi, let me be very specific here that I am not representing the Personal Law Board here, and I am not sitting here as the member of Personal Law Board.
Sure.
I am sitting as Mahmood Pracha and an individual. Now, having said that, I want to agree with you on certain points that why people are opposing it as of now when the law has not been even declared. So, my reason for opposing this is because of the past practice of this government and also the previous governments who only have political interests in their mind while taking such actions which have got large implications on the plight of the women of this country. First of all, let me clarify once again that triple talaq, instant triple talaq has been declared unconstitutional. It is a judgment which is not so clear in its pronouncement also. But having said that, I don't want to harp upon that subject. The only relief, and Zakia Somen Sahiba is here, she would be kind enough to accept that I have been telling her that this judgment is not going to bring any relief to the Muslim women who are suffering the triple talaq in one go.
Why is that?
Because the only relief which she gets is of about 90 days. Because the only relief which she gets now is of 90 days. And our system is such. And if the law does not make it a penal offense, which I don't think it is going to, because the only relief which is being given to a Muslim woman is that now she will get a divorce in 90 days. The real issue is whether she is given a divorce for just reasons or unjust reasons is the core issue which has not been addressed, by the judgment of the Supreme Court, which probably will not get addressed by this legislation also. So the only
Why
solution,
do you think so?
Because the
Why do you think so? Why do you think that this will not get
court.
addressed by this legislation? Isn't that the point of this legislation? That if somebody within one sitting says talaq 3 times and walks away, he must be punished.
Unless. So a person who gives divorce in 90 days should not be punished, which is an unjust thing once again, is the question. That is one. Two, if the law just makes it unconstitutional and illegal without any repercussions, corresponding repercussions, then there will be no relief to the woman because people have given talaq even after Supreme Court triple talaq in one go, even after the judgment of the Supreme Court.
Yes.
And the only option the woman has is to approach the court. And everybody knows in our country, any woman who approaches the court, it will definitely take more than 90 days. No relief can be granted, not even an interim relief.
No, Mr. Paracha, you're turning this around. You're turning this around to an if and but possibility here. Let's focus on where we've been left after that judgment, which is to say that saying talaq, talaq, talaq at one go and walking away is not acceptable. What is the other form of talaq that has been well defined and followed for ages, which has a due period in which there is mutual consent, both parties have a right, or at least there is a reconciliatory period and intervention by a third party. Correct me if I'm wrong, Zakia Soman, but are we not hoping and working towards a mechanism that gives rights to both parties? Isn't that the intention?
You are asking Miss Zakia Soman?
Yes.
Or me?
No, Ms. Zakia, can you hear me?
Yeah, Tanvi, can you please
Yes, Ms. Zakia Soman, my question is that let's talk about where we are currently, which is that there is no legislation telling us what happens if somebody does practice instant talaq and what should be the way forward as far as triple talaq or a divorce practice is concerned. Isn't that what we need to look at now?
Yeah. The Muslim women today are without any kind of legal protection in our country. the Supreme Court judgment setting aside triple talaq as illegal is a welcome step forward. But we need to take it really forward. We need a comprehensive reform in Muslim personal law. We need a Muslim family law to be passed by the parliament. The law should be based on the Quranic injunctions of gender justice and gender equality. And at the same time, it will conform to the constitutional principles of justice and equality. The talk about a law, while it is welcome, it has come 70 years too late. My simple question is that when the parliament passed the Hindu Marriage Act in 1955, the parliament passed the Hindu Succession Act in 1956. The parliament thereafter continuously amended and reformed the Christian Marriage Act. Why did the parliament not do similar kind of reform with regard to the Muslim Family Act? So there is a clear discrimination of Muslim women in our country. We have no legal protection whatsoever, and that is why even despite the Supreme Court ruling against triple talaq, in the last 3 months we have witnessed some 7 or 8 cases where the men have continued to give triple talaq to their wives.
No, Ms. Zakia Soman, what Mahmood Paracha is saying,
this is in the absence
what
of
Mahmood
the law,
Paracha is saying, and in a sense, indirectly justifying this opposition, is to say that bringing in a law is not going to help your cause. That just an extension of 90 days instead of an immediate talaq is not going to help or solve the problem.
So our condition right now is so bad, and it can only improve from where we are. It can only improve with a law being brought about. And the Quran talks about a minimum period of 90 days over which reconciliation should happen, over which mediation should happen. Both family members from both the sides should be brought in to mediate. So without a process involving the husband as well as the wife, process of reconciliation and mediation, there can be no talaq. So we are not just saying a 90-day period for the heck of it. We are saying a very meaningful 90 days where the woman's opinion is heard, where she is heard out as to what are her issues and what is the kind of resolution that she seeks. So 90-day period is not a kind of a, lip sympathy period. So the only resolution can happen through a codified Muslim family law, which should be passed by the parliament, because we are in a democracy. It's the constitutional obligation of the parliament,
personal
and
law.
it's the entitlement of every Muslim woman.
A codified personal law. That is the demand. Now let's get to specifics, which brings me to the question number 2. If somebody is found practicing instant talaq now, if somebody dares to abandon his wife one fine day and sends her a speed post, sends her a message via Facebook, via WhatsApp, or even utters those 3 words while his wife is sleeping, should he not be sent to jail? That is question number 2. Because Shabana from Uttar Pradesh received talaq when she was asleep in 2013. I am not making this up. This is what is happening in our country. Khushbu, who has a 3-year-old son, said she heard her husband utter talaq thrice over the mobile phone in 2016. And she had been married to him for almost 10 years. Mr. Paracha, I can go on and on because there are so many examples. Petitioner Afrin Rahman said that she was abandoned at the last minute and nobody came to her rescue. Now tell me, if these are the examples, and there are countless hundreds of examples, in fact, I just read a report that Ms. Zakia Soman's establishment has done. It's filled with stories like this. What should be done if you say a law won't help?
See, Tanvi, once again, now that the judgment is there and the initial furor and the emotions are down, now let us come to brass tacks. This is a very sexist way of looking at things. I am sorry to say this, but Ms. Zakia Soman should bear me out with this. A husband who does this kind of atrocity on a woman, which woman would like to stay with that husband is the main question now. Who pronounces such unjust talaq? No woman would like to stay with this man, and the only reason why she is forced to live with this kind of a man is that the financial dependence. So what is being done today to take care of the financial dependence of this woman? Nothing. And this is what needs to be done. Anybody who pronounces triple talaq in one go or in 90 days, if it is unjust, if it is without any reasonable cause, then 60% of the total household's assets should be given to the woman itself immediately. That is one. And the man should be punished with some imprisonment, a very severe imprisonment.
Okay, what do you think should be the imprisonment? What do you think should be the punishment?
Please believe me.
Granted, what should be the punishment? Okay, now you're talking. What should be the punishment to that man?
If there is an unjust talaq,
yeah,
punishment should be at least 5 years according to me. At least 5 years and more, but depending on the circumstances, justness of the triple talaq. Now I want to give you another example.
There is no justness in instant talaq, Mr. Paracha. I am just speaking about that right now.
Is a blessing in disguise.
Yes, Mr. Paracha, there is. I am just talking about instant talaq because that is what has been struck down as not constitutional, unconstitutional. That is what the government needs to come out with a legislation for first. So in that case, what is just about instant talaq?
Supreme Court.
So say it without conditions.
Judgment of the Honorable Supreme Court, with all due respects, is just a lip service. Is just a lip service to Muslim women. That is what I am saying. With utmost respect, this judgment does not give anything apart from lip service to the Muslim women who are oppressed by this kind of practice. That is what I am saying.
Okay.
This is not the solution.
Ms. Soman doesn't agree with you.
Amendment of Domestic Violence Act across the board for all people.
Zakia Soman, do you agree? On two counts. One, that what this judgment does or does not do. And on the second one, should the man be sent to at least 5 years of imprisonment if he dares to give instant talaq?
Tanveer, let me repeat that this judgment is a beginning. Of course, we need a procedure to be laid down. And as to whether the woman wants to stay with an abusive husband, let the woman decide. No woman is fond of staying with her husband who is abusive, who is violent. But what she is seeking here is justice. You know, by saying that a woman who is being beaten by the husband, in any case the woman doesn't want to live with him. Of course she doesn't want to live with him. But she is not going to allow... You know, she's not going to accept that he gets away scot-free.
Absolutely.
This is the unilateralism in this whole proposition which we are questioning. He should be brought to book. He should be brought to justice. She should be compensated. She should be provided with the maintenance so that she and her children can live a life of dignity. So let's not make an excuse of the fact that a woman does not want to live with an abusive husband. Of course, she doesn't want to live with him, but she wants justice and the guy should be punished. Now, that punishment, what should be the punishment? That is for the legislator to sort out. That is for the law to decide. We have enough jurisprudence in our country. There is enough jurisprudence even in the Islamic countries from where we can draw. So that's just a matter of, you know, the finer details and some of those nuances. But yes, the violator should be punished. Yes, the woman should get justice. And this one-sidedness should come to an end. And that is very, very important.
Mr. Paracha, you say this judgment doesn't do much, but I can actually read out and quote almost every single one of those 5 judges who have actually gone on to say that at some point the legislative arm has to come in and give us a law and decide. This is what CJI Justice Kayar had to say. The reason for this court not to interfere with the same, it was submitted, was a matter of faith of a majority of Muslims in this country, and that this court could well be advised to leave such a practice of faith to be determined in a manner as was considered fit by those who are governed thereby. The government is the one that governs us today. I can go on to quote Justice Kurian and the other 3 judges. The fact is that they left it on the government of the day to bring a legislation, which is exactly what is happening now.
No, Tanvi, that is wrong reading of the judgment.
Okay.
In fact, the judgment written by the Chief Justice is a minority judgment.
Yes,
that
it is
not the law.
Of course it is.
It is a minority judgment. It is not the law. This is not what is held by this judgment. The only thing which has been held by this judgment is triple talaq in one go has been declared as unconstitutional, bad in law. That is what has been held. And even if the spirit of the minority judgment of the Chief Justice of this country is considered, that is my fear. And if legislation is brought into effect of which the guiding spirit is the judgment, then it is only going to be a lip service as this judgment is. Pardon me for saying this, but this judgment does not give any right or any benefit to the Muslim women who are sufferers of.
Okay, I don't want to sit here and analyze the judgment, sir. The point is to go forward. The point is to move forward, because this, I believe, this judgment has paved way for what the political parties, the government, successive governments in the last 50 years could not do, for what the Muslim bodies who want to claim that they are the so-called caretakers of the community could not do. This judgment has paved way for us to do it. The onus, of course, now is for the government to get it done. But if from day one there is opposition, then where is there going to be a constructive conversation? That's the limited point that I am trying to make here. Go ahead, finish your point, Mr. Paracha. You were saying something before we move on to the third question.
I was saying only thing that you have given a long list of institutions and persons who have failed Muslim women. This judgment is only an extension of that list. That is what I am saying. The only way women in this country can get justice, be it Muslim or belonging to any other religion, is amendment and full enforcement of the Protection for Domestic Violence Act. That law is being laughed at every single day in this country, and recently Supreme Court has also diluted the dowry laws of this country. This is a matter of concern unless there is uniformity in law for everyone. And I totally agree with Zakia Soman on one point, that this is an issue not of personal law, but this is a criminal offense in which there should be amendment in penal code, amendment in Domestic Violence Act, which should make any separation, unilateral separation in one instant unjust by a husband to the wife should be made penal offense, and the properties enjoyed by the household should be divided immediately. A majority portion of that has to be given to the wife, and then and only then there could be any justice. Otherwise, all this is lip service. Please mark my word.
Question number 3 that we are going to move on to is this a good time for an overall reform to codify the personal law? Zakia Soman, it's not just about instant talaq. Women forever now have been fighting for equality and for a dignified life in so many ways. What about halala? What about polygamy? What about the age of marriage? If everything is to be left to some of these Muslim bodies, then where are we going to get?
Yeah. Tanvi, unfortunately, we live in a patriarchal world, and in a patriarchal world, the time for women's rights is never right. There is always some or the other excuse, like so many years ago in 86 when a lone woman, Shabanu, demanded her Quranic right for maintenance. She was, totally sort of crushed and subjugated by so many forces. But we are now, fortunately for us, times have now changed, and now Muslim women and girls have become quite aware, they have become quite empowered, they have become quite vocal about their rights. So I think the time is already quite right. In fact, like I said, it is 70 years too late. The lack of a family law for the Muslim community is a, without sounding, without making it sound like an exaggeration, it's a blot on India's democracy, that after 70 years of independence, the Muslim women do not have the protection of a law. So let's correct this anomaly. We are demanding parity. We are demanding parity with our Hindu sisters, with our Christian sisters, with our Parsi sisters. And what we are demanding is our entitlement, our right given to us by the Constitution. Moreover, gender justice is a fundamental principle of Islam, but it has not been allowed to accrue to us thanks to the patriarchal world that we live in, thanks to the domination of the orthodox elements such as the personal law board. So, but it is no more going to work because the women of this country are demanding the change. The girls of this country are demanding this change. So I think the time is right. It should have been done yesterday. Okay, it was too late. So let's do it now today.
Yes. Instead of questioning what has been, what difference does the current order make, let's say where we can go, Mr. Paracha. I've got a caller on the phone line, a viewer calling us. So Mr. Suresh Iyer, I believe, is on the phone line. Good evening, Mr. Iyer. Go ahead.
What I'd like to say is I totally agree to what our women panelists are saying. Discrimination, I think, starts at home. And you can see discrimination between a man and a woman. And our society mindset has to change completely. So we have to change our mindset, and we have to bring sterner laws, and which takes care of the women throughout the lifetime. So next time a man doesn't take such a unpardonable step where he is aware of his rights, and she is aware of her rights.
Yeah,
I think women like these will take India to the next century.
Yes,
and there will not be any discrimination. Discrimination in every sense of the word. This is not only in as far as the triple talaq is concerned. You can see it happen in sports. You can see it happen in corporate world.
Yes.
Everywhere we go, there is
Mr. Iyer, what you are saying and what you and I are also hoping for is a larger social change in the mindset. And if actually that happens, then we won't even need to have a discussion about a law. But I thank you for calling and speaking your mind here. I'm running out of time, but there was a caller who did call and left a message saying, this is MF Hussain from Hyderabad, and he says, मेरी लड़की को जो तलाक हुआ है, ये वकील लाखों लूट रहे हैं. एक साथ तलाक को सपोर्ट नहीं करता मैं. कोर्ट से नहीं किया है, तलाक का सर्टिफिकेट नहीं मिला है. First legal action should be taken against lawyers. One of the many problems, Mr. Paracha, as I wrap up this, I want to understand from you, in your legal expertise, what should be those three things that the government must keep in mind as they legislate a law? How do we make this easier and just for both sides?
See, personally, my biggest fear is what Ms. Zakia Soman is saying, that she wants parity with women of other communities, including Hindu, Sikh and Christian. See, I would see that as a disaster, because the condition of Hindu women, Christian women and Sikh women is disastrous as any other. So if our ultimate goal is that, then we are not asking for anything. That is my biggest concern. The only thing which needs to be done, as I am saying again and again, is that let us not make this issue as a Muslim bashing issue. That is the biggest fault in this. The only way Muslim women or women belonging to any other religion.
Tell me the law, sir. Tell me the law. What should the clauses be? What should the clauses be? A, number one, the man should be sent to jail for at least 5 years. Anybody else who supports him, whether it is a Muslim body, whether it is a cleric or a Maulana or a police officer or a lawyer, should also be sent to jail. Should that be the clause? I'm asking you that. Let's get specific here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. And for that, the only way out is amendment of penal laws, not personal laws. That is what I am saying.
Try all you might. A change is coming, sir. Try all you might. A change is coming because personal laws. But because personal laws are the ones that are also defining how we live our life.
It is just
and religious heads cannot decide how our life should be lived, Mr. Paracha. So if you want to keep this away from codifying it and bringing in a law, it's not going to work for too long. That's all I am saying. Ms. Zakia Soman agrees. She's calling out your hypocrisy tonight. Something to think about.
I'm not saying that.
Yes, you are. You are trying to keep this away from a codified law. You want to still leave it in the hands of few people who want to decide everything for the entire set of women in this country.
The Muslim women are not fools.
No, no.
We're out of time. This debate is not over. I'm going to have both of you again on this show because we need to figure out a way what that new law should say to protect the interest of women. We've moved on from the time that somebody else, a religious leader or anyone else or a neta could decide how a woman should lead her life. We need a law in place that codifies it, and anybody who breaks it should be sent to jail. Wrap up this show, but thank you to our panelists for joining us tonight.